everyone, and welcome to New Life Ranch. My name is Bethany and this is my friend Drew. Today we are down here by Flint Creek and we are going to be doing some fishing, and we're going to look at the wildlife in the creek and learn what exactly lives and swims in our creek. If you would like to learn along with us, go ahead and print out the worksheet attached to this video. You ready to get started?
I am. Let's do it.
Okay.
Now that we've caught a couple of fish, let's go check out what we've caught earlier. Now that we've done some fishing, let's talk a little bit about the food chain that's in Flint Creek. What the food chain actually is the process in which the animals in a habitat consume food. And they all depend on each other, and that's kind of why it's called a food chain. There's the top of the food chain and the bottom of the food chain. And in our creek, the big fish eat the smaller fish, and the smaller fish eat even smaller fish, and they eat the bugs and so on. So the big fish, they depend on the bugs that are at the bottom because those bugs are eaten by the fish that grow up into their food. So can you tell me what are the tertiary or predator fish that are in our creek?
The sharks?
No, actually we don't have sharks.
The lobster?
We have something similar to a lobster, but no lobsters.
Oh, I see it, the bass.
That's right, we have bass. The bass are our primary or our predator fish. They're at the top of the food chain, and so we call them tertiary consumers. And we have a few bass in our tanks here that we've caught, and we'll show you a few of those. I'll start off with the big one, which this is our largemouth bass. I got him. There he is. That's a big one. This one we weighed him, and he is 2.5 pounds. So this is a largemouth bass. This is actually a good way to hold a fish, is by the jaw like this. Largemouth bass, it has a separation between its two top fins here. There's a space there. Our smallmouth bass, these two fins are joined together. Also the largemouth bass, its bottom jaw is hinged behind the eye, and its mouth is very big, therefore it's called the largemouth bass. And it has this horizontal stripe on it going the length of the fish. That is a largemouth bass. And they eat the secondary consumers. This is a smallmouth bass, and it looks a lot like the largemouth bass. You can see there's a little bit of a bridge here between these two fins. This one's so small that it's kind of hard to tell. Its jaw right here hinges in front of its eye or below its eye. It has more like spots on its side instead of a long stripe. That's probably the easiest way to identify it. And the spots, sometimes they go vertically more than horizontally, like the largemouth. So those are our predator fish that are at the top of the food chain. And Bethany, if our predator fish are considered tertiary consumers and they're at the top of the food chain, what do you think the next group of fish would be called in the food chain?
Secondary consumers?
That's right, secondary. There you go, good job. So the next group of fish in the food chain, which are below the predator fish, are the secondary consumers, and those are made up mainly of sunfish in Flint Creek, and those are the ones that the bass eat. So we have a few of those too. Okay, this is a type of sunfish We have many types of sunfish in Flint Creek, but this one is a bluegill. You might be able to see that it's kind of blue underneath its chin, around its gills there. It's the most common fish in the creek, the one that we catch the most of. Here's another type of sunfish. This one is called a red ear sunfish, and it's pretty clear that why it's called that. If you can see, it's got a red, or sometimes it's more orange, but like this one, but it's a red ear sunfish. This is a baby red-eared slider turtle, and we see a lot of these this time of year in the spring. They start hatching out of their eggs and moving toward water, so we managed to catch one of these and put him in the aquarium, but he's hiding inside his shell at the moment.
He's a little scared.
Yeah, but if he stuck his head out, you could see that he had some red ears, kind of like our red-eared sunfish. So the rest of our fish that we'll talk about, we have some pictures of, because we weren't able to catch all the fish that we wanted to talk about. So this one is a crappie. We have some of these in Flint Creek. They generally come through early spring about this time, and we catch a few of them, but there's not a lot of crappie in Flint Creek. This is a long-eared sunfish. It's our most colorful fish. Generally they're one of the smaller fish, and they're a lot of fun to catch because they're so colorful. Those are all sunfish, and they are part of the secondary consumers of the food chain. So Bethany, we have the tertiary consumers, the secondary consumers, and what would be the name of you think the next level of consumers in the food chain?
Primary.
Primary ones? Okay. These are? Yeah, these are our primary consumers. And these are the things that our sunfish, the secondary consumers, eat.
Is that why we go fishing with worms?
That's right.
So they'll eat them?
Mm-hmm, good. That's our bait for catching secondary consumers, our sunfish. What else do we have for primary consumers?
Crayfish.
Yeah, crayfish or crawdad. We have lots of those in the creek.
Looks like we also have a minnow. I've gone fishing with these before too.
Yep, those make good bait. And these are kind of weird. What do we call these?
Macroinvertebrates.
Macroinvertebrates. That's kind of a big word. When it comes to invertebrates, I guess these are the larger ones because they get even smaller than these. These you can see with your naked eye. So relatively speaking, they're large. The microinvertebrates, I guess, are the ones that you actually can't see with your naked eye. They're so small that you have to use maybe a magnifying glass or a microscope. Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are macroinvertebrates, also called bugs. That's what I like to call them, is bugs.
Yeah. All sick to bugs.
So the perch love to eat a lot of bugs.
Water bugs.
And they are part of the primary consumer group. What's next in line in our food chain, Bethany?
Looks like we got this green leaf. Looks kind of boring and dead. Yep.
This is algae. It's called a producer because it can actually produce its own food. So the macroinvertebrates, they like to eat a lot of algae. There's also one more group that likes to eat algae. That is called our scavenger group. They're kind of outside of the food chain a bit because they just eat the algae. So these are different kinds of carp, which we have lots of carp in Flint Creek. This one's a red horse, and this one is a northern. And those are carp. They can get very big, and they eat algae. Well, now that we've talked about the fish and the food chain and done a little fishing in Flint Creek, I'm going to hand it over to Miss Bethany, and she'll have a spiritual application for us.
So now that we have learned about the fish in the creek and what lives in the water around here, we're going to talk about a little spiritual application involving fishing. So first of all, I want to point out that as Mr. Drew was baiting his hook, he covered the hook pretty thoroughly with the worm. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but I did. And then he stuck his hook with the juicy worm on it into the water, so hoping that the fish would catch his trap and bite it. And that got me thinking, like, how many times have I fallen for things that look good on the outside but really are just a trap? You know, whether that be comparing myself to others or being selfish with my time and money. Like, those are things that look good on the outside, but in reality, they're gonna leave you empty and they're gonna catch you and you're not gonna be able to get out of that trap. So that's just something I want you guys at home to think about, of like, what things have you guys been trapped by in the past? What things are you currently trapped by or have been deceived by, that things that initially look good but later on destroy you, because these hooks are not fun to get in these fish's mouths. Like, they don't enjoy being caught, and that's not a fun place for us to be caught in life either. I also, as we were fishing today, I realized I was thinking about several Bible stories that involve fishing, and I realized a lot of Jesus's close friends were fishermen, particularly Peter and Andrew. Like, in Matthew 4, God calls them and says, "Hey, leave your nets and come follow me." And this was huge because they were fishermen. That's what they did for their jobs. That's how they provided for their family. But they immediately dropped their nets and ran to follow Christ. And there's two things that are interesting about that. Not only did they drop their nets so fast, but that God wanted to be friends with them, that He wanted them to follow Him, because they, like us and like me, get caught in these traps and get deceived in life. And often, I mean, they're normal human beings. They sin too, but God loved them so much that He made a way to sacrifice His only Son, His perfect Son, that was fully human and fully God at the same time. And He sent Him down onto earth to die for us so that we could be forgiven, so that God could have that perfect relationship with mankind, and so that we could accept Him and believe Him and throw our nets and everything that is a hindrance to us and that gets in the way of our spiritual walk with Christ, and so that we could run fully towards Christ. And there's just such a beautiful picture in my mind, and being here today at the creek has just reminded me of the grace that I have in life and the joy and freedom that I have, knowing that Christ died for me and that He loves me even with my sin. And even though I get deceived by worldly things from time to time, He still loves me and He still wants that close, intimate relationship with me and to walk with me. I hope all of you guys also know that love and compassion from Christ and can freely, joyfully walk in that grace that He extends to us every day.